In the previous episode,
Give me your hand. Hold on.
deep beneath the ocean, where sunlight is nothing but a faded memory, a city lives inside a gigantic glass sphere. To the Atlanteans, this is home. Once, the ocean outside was a gentle blanket, wrapping around them in silence. But today, the pressure of the water has become a giant hand, tightening a little more every single moment. And every time it tightens, the glass that shields the city groans like a living creature on the edge of dying. At first, they were only scratches, thin as strands of hair. No one paid attention. Then every drill pulse from the surface, every test explosion humans called training, hammered down here like war drums on the seabed. The cracks began to spread. Each day, just a little more. Each day, no one was willing to admit that the whole city was slowly sinking inside the very shell that once saved it. At the heart of the sphere, in a circular control room wrapped in screens and glowing water columns, Nerida stares at a map of the dome. Every red dot is a crack. Every dot is a countdown no one wants to hear. Below her, between the flooded streets, children still play, adults still trade, laugh, argue, as if the glass above their heads were not the only thing keeping their world from being crushed to dust. They don't hear the creaking, but she does, very clearly. Closer to the base of the city, in a tiny glass chamber bolted to the dome like a strange little growth, someone who does not belong here opens his eyes for the second time. Captain Ryan Walker, United States Marine Corps, the only survivor after the blast that tore his ship into shrapnel. He can't see the sky, can't see the deck, only water on every side, and above him, a curved ceiling of glass where faint cracks crawl like ghostly spider webs. His first instinct is to live. He pounds his fists against the glass, screams, but the sound never leaves his chest. There is no air to carry it anywhere. Only small rings of bubbles break and vanish. From the outside looking in, he is nothing more than a creature trapped in a display tank. A slim shadow appears beyond the chamber, eyes shining coldly through the glass. Nerida, guardian of the dome, the one assigned to make use of the enemy who just fell out of the sky. She raises a small device that glows softly and presses it against the surface of the glass. Ripples of energy spread like circles on water. Ryan feels a tingle race down his spine, and then her voice blooms in his head, clear as if he were listening to a radio in the ship's control room. Not English, not any language he knows, but the device drags them together at a single point, meaning, you are in Atlantis. You are alive because right now you are useful. But don't get this wrong, you are still our prisoner. Every time Nerida closes her eyes, all she sees is red. Red of the cracks on the dome map, red of the warnings flashing around the city. The Council wants war. Kale wants to turn this soldier into a symbol of everything the surface has done. But when she looks at him, she doesn't just see a monster. She sees answers she desperately needs if she doesn't want everything above her head to shatter. You will tell me everything about that ship. Her voice echoes inside Ryan's mind, steady and cold, or we drown together.
They don't open the door for him, not ever. Instead, Ryan's entire glass chamber is locked onto a water rail, detaching from the dome like a round bullet. A sudden push hurls him forward, sliding through transparent tunnels, past levels of houses, plazas, markets underwater. For a few brief seconds, he sees Atlantis from the inside, as if he were being fired straight through the heart of a giant creature that is dying, yet still pretending everything is fine. The pod stops with a small jolt. In front of Ryan is a circular space whose walls aren't stone or steel, but hundreds of screens, hundreds of water conduits pulsing light in rhythm with the city's heartbeat. At the center of the ring, Nerida stands alone, surrounded by a three-dimensional model of the dome, glowing red with fractures. In this world, she is the only one standing between the city and the crushing ocean outside. And now, whether he likes it or not, she is dragging him into the middle of that battle. He looks up at the cracked dome model in front of him, then through the pod's glass at the real dome beyond. They are the same, perfectly, terrifyingly the same. Somewhere above, a faint crack snaps, very softly, but they both hear it. In that instant, Ryan understands he isn't just locked in a cell, he is locked inside a bomb. And Nerida understands if she cannot use this soldier, that bomb will go off. Their eyes meet, heavy and silent, and that is where their story truly begins.
You're listening to Midnight Action Stories, thrilling crime tales after dark. If you enjoy these late-night missions, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop your questions or theories in the comments below.
Nerida wastes no time on comfort or further explanations. She calls up the image of Ryan's ship, reconstructed from the wreckage they salvaged outside. The hull floats in midair, racked in Atlantean data layers completely alien to human measurements. Ryan sees the ship's name, the guns, the familiar rows of antennas come back to life, and for the first time, he understands. Everything he thought had sunk to the bottom is still here, being dissected like the carcass of a hunted animal. She points at a cluster near the bottom of the ship, where drilling tubes and emitters knot into a mass of metal. A red pulsing mark hovers there. This, her voice says in his mind, is what shook the seabed. In Ryan's memory, the image flickers back, the hot engine room, yellow lights, calm orders over the intercom, and then a jolt, a strangled roar from below. He always believed it was a technical accident, but looking at the map before him, from the ocean's point of view, the accident feels far more like a deliberate strike than a simple misstep. Nerida switches displays. The ship disappears, replaced by a top-down map of the seafloor. From a bright point marking the human drilling platform, concentric rings ripple outward, each ring another training run. With every ring that passes, the rock under Atlantis is shaved thinner and thinner. You call it training, the narration echoes Ryan's thought. But down here, every exercise is a hammer blow to the foundation of our home. He has nothing left to use as an excuse. Words like, "I was just following orders," suddenly sound hollow, drifting like bubbles in deep water. He sees again the metal table in the command room, the mission sheet with the words "training exercise," his own signature scrawled at the bottom. Back then it was just a formality, a meaningless line of ink. Now in this control room beneath the sea, that line of ink overlays perfectly with red seismic rings on the map. He realizes some signatures don't just close a file, they stamp a crack onto the ceiling of people he has never met, never even believed were real. And now those people are staring at him as the source of every fracture. Somewhere else in the city, a very different story is being told. The Atlantean council chamber is a circle of stone, and the ceiling is not a ceiling at all. It is water. Above, fish drift by like moving shadows. Lord Kale stands in the center, his silhouette mirrored in the surface, with the human ship in the cracked dome blown up behind him. He doesn't need to shout. He lets the images do the shouting. The ship crossing into a forbidden zone, the fractures flaring to life. Representatives from each district projected on columns of light stare at the enemy on the screen, faces tight with fear. Fear spreads faster than any current. Some delegates slam their hands down, demanding the surface man be hung as a warning. Others stay silent, but the terror in their eyes is obvious. In the deeper streets, the session is broadcast on hanging water screens. Atlantean citizens gather to watch it like a war report. Every time the image of the human ship appears, whispers rise like bubbles. No one mentions seismic data. No one mentions the corporation's drill on the surface. Down here, it's much easier to compress everything into a single face, Captain Ryan Walker. Back in the control room, Nerida shuts off the images of the ship and the platform, leaving only the dome model still glowing red. She stands still for a long moment, weighing two kinds of risk, trusting the enemy or watching her roof crack day by day. Finally, she reaches out, opening a secondary control interface. Lines and force vectors bloom closer to Ryan's pod. "You understand submarines, your own pressures," her voice says in his head. "Show me, if this were your hull, how would you divide the load so it doesn't blow apart?" Ryan hesitates, but years at sea have carved a language into his bones, the language of pressure and curved steel. He presses his palm to the inner glass, and the Atlantean interface responds instantly. Grid lines run over the 3D dome, slicing it into tiles like armor plates on a ship. He drags a few points, shifting the stress away from the worst fractures, pushing it toward stronger zones. On the model, the red fades to orange, then to yellow. Nerida watches closely. For the first time, she doesn't just see a prisoner, but an unwilling colleague who speaks the same language as she does, from the other side of the water. Nerida starts the simulation. A virtual shockwave slams into the model dome, just like the real tremors that hit them every week. This time, instead of great chunks blazing crimson and spreading, only a few tiles flare, then stabilize. The pressure graph drops, warnings dim down. The narration leaves a brief silence between them. They both stare at the model, then at each other. In this room full of cold numbers, they've just created the rarest thing of all: more time. Not a victory, just a little more time for the city, not to break today. The relief doesn't last. As the warnings on the screen slide from red to yellow, the whole control room shudders again. This time it isn't simulation, it's rock, real water, real pressure. Pipes overhead rattle violently. A few bioluminescent bulbs pop, scattering tiny drifting lights into the water. The floor tilts under Nerida's feet, and Ryan's glass sphere swings like a shaken ornament. The alarm howls, no longer the calm voice of a machine, but the raw scream of a wounded body. In a district that was peaceful minutes ago, coral stalls align the market. People swim lazily past. Children chase schools of tiny fish. Then a sharp crack splits the water, like a windshield shattering in your ear. A section of the dome overhead tears open, and a jet of seawater knifes in, huge and merciless. Stalls, goods, adults, and children are all swept into the torrent. In the chaos, a little girl named Lyra clutches her mother's hand, eyes wide, staring up at the hole, at the place where the outside world has finally punched through the glass that once kept her safe. In the control room, live feeds from surveillance eyes bloom across the main display, cutting the screens into dozens of small frames. One shows the shattered market, water swirling into a vortex, Atlanteans fighting the current. Lyra appears in one feed, her small body pinned beneath a fallen shard of glass, the flow pressing her down onto the street. Ryan sees it. He needs no translator. The water is rising, the clock is shrinking. Part of him wants to look away, to remind himself this is not his mission, but the part that used to be a Marine stands up first. He hurls himself towards the edge of the pod, slamming his hands against the glass, not for himself anymore, but for a child in a world he didn't even believe in a few days ago.
In that moment, every pressure chart, every crack map slips out of Ryan's mind. There is only one frame left: Lyra, pinned to the street, a slab of glass across her chest, the dirty current chewing away the last seconds of her life. He slams his hands against the pod, pointing at the screen as if shouting, "Open it, now!" Nerida turns, catches his eyes. There is no gleam of an American soldier there anymore, only the look of a man who has watched too many people drown to just stand by for one more. Nerida knows exactly what it means. If she opens the pod, she's breaking dozens of security protocols, unleashing what the Council calls a living weapon of the surface. But the alarms, the roar of water, the pounding of her own heart, all merge into a single answer. She raises her hand, keys in a string of overrides, and unlocks the pod. Water surges in, turning into a spinning doorway that rips Ryan out of the glass sphere. Atlantean guards whip around, eyes wide. They see the prisoner escaping, and the person opening his door is the engineer of the dome herself. Cold water clamps around him, but for Ryan, it's still better than sitting still and watching a child die. The chains on his wrists drag and snag, but he swims like he used to through the shattered corridors of his own ship. Ahead, the flooded district has become a maze of broken glass and snapped coral, wreckage hanging in the water like traps of knives. With every stroke, he squeezes through bent doorways, shoves aside drifting tables, dodges a body caught in the flow. He has no mask, no gun, no orders, only a single objective, reaching Lyra before her lungs give up. Lyra is no longer screaming. By the time Ryan reaches her, the last bubbles are already thinning around her mouth and nose. Her eyes are wide, not in panic anymore, but in the numb acceptance of a child meeting an ending far too early. The glass slab across her chest nails her to the street. Ryan dives down, forcing himself into the raging flow, planting his chained hands on the edge of the shard. He clenches his jaw and pulls. The weight of the ocean bears down on his back, but in that moment, he is not a prisoner of Atlantis, nor a Marine of the United States. He is just a human being trying to lift a stone off the chest of a child. Every second stretches into a lifetime. His arms shake, the manacles bite deeper, sending thick ribbons of dark blood into the water like spilled ink. Just as he feels his grip failing, part of the glass jerks up, opening a narrow gap. He grabs Lyra, yanks her free from her accidental water coffin. At that instant, Nerida and several Atlanteans surge in, helping brace the damaged roof and keep the current from sweeping both of them away. Lyra coughs violently, her small lungs convulsing, eyes flickering in search of something to hold on to. And in that blurred vision, the first face she sees is the face of the surface man everyone called a monster. Later, emergency barriers seal off the district, forming a new bubble budding off the old dome. The current calms, debris starts to settle on the floor. In that wrecked space, Ryan hangs in the water, breathing hard, blood still spilling from his wrists. Atlanteans gather around him, not approaching but not turning away either. They whisper to each other, trading glances. He saved the child. Lyra's parents clutch their daughter, both of them still shaking. The father looks at Ryan, his eyes holding both the old fear of stories long told and a brand new debt. He doesn't know what to call this man anymore, but he can no longer honestly call him nothing but a monster. The fragile silence is ripped apart when Kale arrives with a squad of armed soldiers. The crowd's gaze snaps away from Ryan, peeling back like a receding tide. Kale barely glances at Lyra, just long enough to confirm she's alive. Then his eyes lock on Ryan, on the blood still drifting from his wrists. Perfect, his thoughts turn cold in the narration. Perfect for a propaganda story, a monster pretending to be a hero. He signals the guards to tighten the ring, not only around Ryan, but around Nerida, the one who opened the door for that monster. Ryan's chains are cinched tighter as they drag him away between two lines of silent stares. No one speaks, but the story of the surface man who saved the girl has already been written in their minds, no matter what Kale says later. Nerida is quietly reprimanded by the council in a brief, cold exchange that reminds her her job is to keep the dome standing, not to open it for the enemy. That night, when all the noise has faded, she stands alone again in the control room. The dome model glows before her, cracks still red, even though the new pattern she and Ryan devised has eased some of the pressure. But on the sonar, another signal appears, a new human drilling platform, creeping closer, deeper, more ruthless than before. The glass has cracked. Hearts have started to crack as well. And somewhere between those fractures, war is seeping in, like seawater through a broken seam.
You're listening to Midnight Action Stories, thrilling crime tales after dark. If you enjoy these late-night missions, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop your questions or theories in the comments below.